In this lesson, we'll look at some practical advice from the Gliding Federation of Australia, and I'm very grateful that they put this on YouTube, very helpful. Follow the advice, it's very good. Keep a logical sequence as you walk around the glider, checking it. Don't allow yourself to be distracted, and if you need it, get assistance or advice.
So time to push the glider out of the hangar. At this point, though not an official part of the daily inspection, most people will wash the glider. This serves two purposes. Firstly, it removes dust and leftover junk from previous flying, and secondly, it gives you a chance to look over the aircraft in detail as you are washing it, looking for those fine marks like cracks or chips. With the paperwork checks done and the glider clean and ready for detailed inspection, we now start at the cockpit. Before we look inside, we check the canopy for issues. Are there cracks in the canopy that are starting to propagate? Have the rails around the clear-view window cracked or lost any screws? Does the clear-view window open and close? Open the canopy up and check that the stop cable is functioning and will detach in the case of needing to bail out, and that the hinges are both safe and will hold the canopy onto the glider. Next, we check that the wings are properly secured to the glider. There are many different styles for wing pins and making sure that they are secure, so please ensure you look at the manual for the glider you are currently inspecting. Large span gliders, like two-seaters, often also have drag pins, so ensure that they are fitted and secure. While we are here, for gliders that do not have automatic control coupling, check that they are still in safety. Even if the aircraft flew yesterday, there's no guarantee that someone hasn't been doing some overnight maintenance and left them uncoupled. Learning to feel for correct connection is an important part of being a daily inspector, as often the glider manufacturers have not left much room for a proper visual inspection. A torch and mirror are often useful here. Many gliders also have their batteries installed on the parcel shelf or in the wing roots, so let's check those too. Ensure that you have fully charged batteries. If not already fitted, put them in now, secure them and plug in the leads. Check that the safety is in place, that the leads aren't coming apart, and that the fuse is okay. With the battery in place, we can quickly check the instruments. Turn the master switch on and check all batteries are providing power. Check that the electrical items on the instrument panel are responding. Some may have a separate on switch. If you have a radio fitted, now would be a good time to do a quick radio check. Moving on to the belts, we first check for condition. Have they frayed? Is the stitching coming apart? Do they connect up and lock into position properly? Also check they are correctly fitted in the glider. Make sure that you have the appropriate cushions for the glider, and items like headrests are in good condition. In the event of a heavy landing or worse, headrests are a very important safety item. Due to the design of some glider canopies, they have been known to get burnt badly. Under the cushions are the seatbacks, which are often movable. Ensure that these are still safe, particularly around the fuselage mounts. Accidents have been attributed to seatbacks moving early in the launch because they were not properly secured. The seat band too is checked to ensure safety. In older gliders with open frames, it is possible that items have fallen out of pockets and ended up under the seat where they could easily jam the controls. Again, a torch and mirror should be used to check these hard-to-see places. Finally, identify where the ballast is fitted in the glider and ensure the fittings are safe and that any ballast is removed. Daily inspections have two checks of the controls. This check in the cockpit ensures that we don't have any interference issues. Controls should be checked to ensure that they move to the full extent of their respective travel and that there is no binding in the control circuits. Firstly, the stick, then the air brakes, a stretch for the rudders, and for gliders fitted with them, that the flaps move to all positions of travel. Most gliders have a boot around the control column. Over time, these become worn and develop holes. Make sure that everything is still in good condition and that items cannot fall through into the control mechanisms. Rudder cables are checked as much as possible for signs of wear. Typically you'll find this around the S-bend and also on any crimps. Broken strands in the cable are a sign of impending failure. Be careful checking these, as small strands can jab you. It's best to use a cloth to check for broken cables. The tow release and rudder pedal cables should also be checked to make sure they operate correctly. If a rope with rings is available, do your release check now, though many clubs will do them once out on the flight line. Testing the wheel brake will require 2 people. A light push while the other activates the brakes will be a sufficient test. Instrument checks make sure that everything is still in working order. While the accuracy is not checked during the daily inspection, we make sure that they still have basic operation. It is not unknown to have insects, like wasps and bees, make a home in the pitot tubes overnight, and water to get into the TE or static ports due to storms, or the cleaning of the glider you did earlier. Check the electrical and mechanical instruments, ensuring that there is no broken glass and they are still secure in the panel. The altimeter can be set to airfield height above sea level. And firstly, check the skin condition for any signs of damage. Damage can occur in a variety of ways. Wheels up landing, a hard nose first landing in a glider with a nose wheel or skid, or even extra hard braking, pitching the nose forward. Check not only directly under the nose, but also along the side of the fuselage, particularly around the mount points for the seatbelts. Fine cracks here in the gel coat or paint should be investigated by somebody with advanced qualifications. In fabric or metal covered gliders, distortion in the surface can often reflect damage in the underlying structure. For gliders with a nose wheel or skid, check their condition. Tyres should be correctly inflated, and there should be no damage to the skid or the fabric protection around it, which is particularly important for winch-launched aircraft. Next, check the static ports. Most aircraft have 2 or 4 in the front, and often you can find another set in the rear fuselage or under the wings. They should be clear of water from your washing. They are a favourite place for ants as well, particularly when you have the gliders parked outside, such as at a camp. Moving to the rear of the aircraft, we check the boom for damage. If there's static ports here, and or a total energy probe, inspect them and make sure that there are no blockages. Feel or look along the bottom for any obvious damage from large rocks or damage from a heavy landing. At the base of the fin, there's many things to inspect. Most often, signs of a heavy landing can be seen here, with cracks or crazing visible. But be careful not to confuse those with the scratches from the tail dolly, often found on club gliders. Signs of additional damage can be spotted by lightly leaning on the top of the fin and looking for bowing in the skin. Moving up the fin, next inspect the tailplane. Identify how it is secured to the aircraft and ensure that it is correctly rigged and on securely. Check for cracks and damage on both the bottom and top surfaces. Moving out to the tip, light pressure, both fore and aft, and up and down, will confirm whether the attachment is secure. Many aircraft, particularly older types, have some play here, so don't be concerned with the small amounts of rattles. Like the ailerons, check the hinges for play and that the gap seals, where fitted, are intact and not lifting. Don't forget to check that the elevator connection is safe too, by checking the coupling, and testing for play while a helper holds the control column in the cockpit. While you have a helper in the cockpit, test the rudder is firmly connected by having them hold the rudder pedals while you press against the rudder. Check that the rudder cables are securely fastened to the aircraft, and that there's been no damage to the rudder. The bottom is particularly prone to damage from bad landings, and the trailing edge from items falling on it. Check that the tail wheel is correctly inflated or the tail skid is firmly attached. Many aircraft can fit tail ballast of both fixed and water types, sometimes both. Make sure fixed ballast is securely fitted and there's no damage to the fitting. Water ballast should be checked for leaks if you have it filled. Some aircraft will have spin kits or handles that can be fitted. Check the mounting points to ensure that they are secure. Finally, check the TE probe is secure and hasn't collected bugs. If you haven't already checked the Vario for correct functionality, now would be a good time to do so. Now that the fuselage inspection is complete, you can move to the other areas of the aircraft. In this video, we walk through the inspection of the wings. Although you had a good look at the wings and fuselage while you were giving it a wash, now we will inspect it more closely. With the water dried off, a detailed inspection of the surface condition can be performed. When inspecting an aircraft, all your sensors are important. Often you can hear something rubbing or feel a crack. Starting at the cockpit, we work our way outboard along the leading edge, looking at the various items along the way, then around the tip and back to the fuselage. Along the wing, we're looking for damage to the leading edge and back to the spar. Small chips are okay, even hairline cracks that aren't too long or big. Damage can happen here for a number of reasons, but often comes from pulling them in and out of trailers. So be extra attentive if this is the first DI after rigging. As you come to the air brakes, check around the box for signs of cracking or failure. On fabric-covered aircraft, pay extra attention to the join at the trailing edge of the box, which may lift. On composite gliders, almost always there will be small diagonal cracks out of the corners of the box. These are generally okay, and many inspectors will have little pencil marks to indicate where they were on the annual inspection, so that any large changes can be quickly noticed. Open the air brakes up and inspect the condition and play. Too much fore and aft play can mean bearings are wearing. The blades shouldn't flex so much that they would be prevented from closing under flight load wind pressure. Inside the air brake box, check for the signs of water buildup, as that can cause corrosion of pushrods, or the failure of the structure in metal and wooden gliders. And the caps should be on securely. Close but not lock the air brakes, and make sure they sit reasonably flush with the surface. They should sit out a little bit, but very uneven amounts of protuberance should be investigated further. Finally, lock the air brakes and make sure the caps pull down tight against the surface. And don't forget the ones on the bottom surface too, for those gliders that have them. Moving along the wing towards the tip, we continue to look at the surface and leading edge for issues. At the tip, check the skid or wheel is solidly fixed to the aircraft. Lift the wing up and look along the bottom surface for damage. Damage can be easily spotted by looking at the way the light reflects off the wing surface when looking at a shallow angle. There may be scrapes and minor impact damage on the bottom surface near the tip, as this often touches the ground. Mild damage to the bottom of the aileron can be found. Mostly this isn't an issue, but if you have any doubts, ask somebody with more experience to check it out. Safety of the wing attachment can be checked by a simple shake of the wing, but not too hard. First up and down, checking that the wing tip on the other end moves up and down at the same time, then forwards and backwards. The fore and aft test is particularly useful on two-seaters or those with large wings to make sure that the drag pins have been correctly fitted. Finally, if you have any winglets or extensions fitted, make sure they are also secure. We now proceed down the back of the wing, again looking for damage on the trailing edge, splits, fabric coming apart, and so forth. Stopping at the aileron, we have several items to inspect. Firstly, damage particularly on the lower surface. Check each of the hinge points for play and signs of damage. Where visible, ensure that the hinges are still safely secured, and that the gap seals, where fitted, have not started to lift or cause other safety problems. And with the help of another person to hold the control column, check that there is not too much free play. And using some light pressure in both directions, check that the connections are secure. If your aircraft is fitted with flaps, repeat the process on the flaps. Inspecting the other wing is the same process as the first, though often done in the reverse order, as you will be inspecting the rear of the fuselage in between.